Well, AJ, should we get to reviewing Ahsoka episode 4?
Let's do it.
Okay. Now, everybody, we do know we're a little late with this review, but what you get with us that you don't with a lot of people is an in-depth review of the episode. And actually, we're working on something so that we can hopefully get these reviews out a little faster than we have been. But yeah, I still want to talk about this episode. So episode 4, entitled Fallen Jedi. Yeah, and I think we talked a little bit before we started rolling, like, or maybe it was earlier in the episode that, like, for me, this show's still hitting. I'm still like enjoying it and curious where it's going. And
yeah, I'm glad they had like, well, we'll get into it, but yeah, I'm enjoying it actually. I'm thoroughly surprised by how much I'm enjoying it. I came into it just, did I say it earlier? I came into it like,
I think so, like, because I think, like I've said before on the show, I'm not even though I've watched a lot of Star Wars stuff, I'm by no means like an expert, and I know you're even more of a novice. So I was wondering how this show would come off to you. Mm-hmm. So we open with Sabine tries to contact Home One, but communications are still jammed. Ahsoka suggests to Sabine that they find the enemy base. Ahsoka says if they can't make the jump to find Ezra, that no one should. And Sabine says it won't come to that. But Ahsoka says it might have already. Ahsoka says it's better that Ezra is stranded than Thrawn returns. And then Ahsoka asks Sabine if she can count on her, and Sabine replies, "You know you can." So she really harps on this for a while, like, to the point where I'm like, well, now I know they're going to set up this exact scenario happening in the episode, to where, like, she doesn't trust Sabine can make the hard decision if it comes down to it, and you can kind of tell that even though Sabine says, like, she can.
Yeah.
But my only thing is like, oh, well, they set this up so much that I know something like this is going to happen. So as Hu Yang works on the ship, it's revealed that another droid is watching him from the distance. So now we get a scene where Shin tells Baylan that the Jedi ship has been found, presumably by that droid we just saw. So he orders her and her men to go after them. Morgan asks Baylan if she detects a note of fear in his voice. But he says, no, it's experience. Now we see that men with guns are now watching Ahsoka's ship. As Sabine gets ready with her gear and weapons, Ahsoka asks Sabine if she needs to worry about her, expressing doubt that she can make the hard decision about Ezra if necessary. So again, if I had one criticism of this episode is I think maybe they harped on that a little bit too much. Yeah, telegraphed it maybe a little bit too much. As Hu Yang finishes repairs on the outside of the ship, he is attacked by another droid. What did you think of this, like, droid on droid, like, fight?
I mean, it has no consequence to me. These droids can be repaired at some point in the future, so their life means nothing.
Yeah, I was never like, that's true. I'm never like too afraid of like something happening to a droid because you're right. But I was trying to think. I don't know if I'd ever seen that necessarily before in a Star Wars thing, like a droid on droid fight. Like I thought it looked okay.
Yeah,
I was like, it at least seemed like maybe something a little new anyway. As Hu Yang calls for help, the men with guns show up, and Hu Yang ends up, like, I think on purpose, like hitting the control panel he just worked on, so that the lights on the ship would go off and like alert Ahsoka.
Yeah.
And so that's what happens. Ahsoka gets alerted, and she like powers up her lightsabers. So Sabine and Ahsoka go outside, and I wrote they pretty much easily defeat these men.
Yeah.
And that's one thing is like a lot of times when it's like a Jedi versus regular people, you're like, well, I know this is going to be a simple fight. They're just going to wreck shop, and that's exactly what they do. Okay, so I thought this was a little bit weird. So like Ahsoka and Sabine are about to leave to like go find the enemy base, and Hu Yang's like, now you guys stick together. And to me, I'm like thinking, well, they're leaving together. You would think they would try to stick together.
Yeah.
I'm like, he made this like point of saying it, and I'm like, I mean, that's not really
Like, it would take more effort for them to divide up and like end up in different places.
Right.
Like, because they both have the same mission. I don't understand why would they would separate.
And actually, they do end up dividing, but for good reason.
Oh, right, yeah, because they had to.
Right, but it's like
Yeah, I mean, in that case, that would have been bad advice to stick together.
exactly like they did the right thing, but in
Yeah.
that moment, so I don't know. I thought it was a little bit weird. Now we get a scene with Hera. And we kind of called this when we were talking about the episode 3. Hera tells one of her men that she is disobeying orders and investigating anyway. And in my estimation, I question if she's a very good mom because she brings her son Jason along with her.
This was wild.
And I'm like, okay, you know you're going somewhere where there's probably danger afoot.
Yeah.
And you're bringing your small child with you? This seems like a bad idea, Hera.
Yeah.
Maybe reconsider that.
I had no idea. Like, as soon as they introduced that she was bringing her small child into this, I was like, what? Why? Well, like, there's no babysitters in this place? Like, she doesn't know anybody?
Yeah, that seemed just bizarre, like a bizarre choice to me.
Yeah.
And I have to assume, like, I don't know, like, I'm sure.
Why did she have to bring him? I just don't understand.
I'm sure it's for a scene later where we can show him like meeting, another character. But I'm like, come on, like that was so stupid on her part.
It's eating away at me though. Like in my mind, I'm like, what caused this to happen? What scenario do you bring your kid on a mission? Like,
I know it's like I'm being sent to war. Come on, John, you can tag along.
It'll be safer for me to watch you there.
Terrible idea. She's a great pilot, but a terrible mom.
She's a great general.
So a pilot named Carson, who also makes appearances in the Mandalorian series, and his men join Hera, and they're like loyal to her, you know. So yeah, I really did like, and we even talked about this a bit when we were talking about episode 3. I thought a scene like this would happen where she's like, decided to go out on her own and got some loyalists to go with her.
I mean, as I don't know much about the whole Star Wars universe, does it seem kind of small when characters show up in different shows like this? Like, considering it's a whole galaxy, right?
Well, I mean, these new crop of shows like The Mandalorian and this one, I think they purposely like set them during the same exact time period so that they could have some of these fun crossovers. And like the rumor is that eventually they are going to do a movie that kind of has a bunch of these characters, like have a big crossover story in a movie. So, which is interesting. I'm wondering if, well, it's interesting to me that they would do that just because like a movie like that, it seems like you might only get Star Wars loyalists that have watched all the TV shows,
Yeah.
It's not going to be like a user-friendly movie necessarily.
Right, yeah.
So I do wonder about that.
Maybe they're confident that they're getting a lot of new people watching these shows.
I mean, that could be. I mean,
I'm thinking about watching Mandalorian too.
You should, man. It's fun. It is, and I think that Mandalorian, is a pretty easy show to get into.
Okay.
But yeah, they end up joining Hera and going on their way to Cetos. Now we get a scene with the bad guys. Morgan tells Baylan that once the guideline is established, they'll be able to calculate the hyperspace coordinates. So I think what she means by that is they mentioned in the last episode that they have to kind of share that lane that the space whales use or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking like they have to like get that just perfect before they can like set up the coordinates or whatever. I'm not sure exactly. Baylan says if her calculations are off by even a little bit, they'll be lost to the depths of the void. So she tells him to have faith, but he says he lost faith a long time ago. I am kind of interested to see his story, see what happened to him at the end of the Clone Wars, and like why he went off on his own and eventually seemingly became kind of a bad guy, Morgan opens the map again, which Baylan refers to as witchcraft. Okay, so now a droid on the hyperspace loop that the bad guys call the Eye of Sion begins calculating those hyperspace coordinates. So this is going to be like the ticking clock of the episode. Like, we don't want to get those coordinates all the way done. So now we get a scene where Sabine and Ahsoka are running through the woods on their way to find the enemy base. But alas, they run into Shin and Merrick. So Sabine pairs off with Shin. Pistols versus lightsaber at first, and Ahsoka pairs off with Merrick, saber versus saber. Shin force pushes Sabine into a tree, and I think that causes her to drop her pistol, so then she busts out her lightsaber. Merrick spins his... This was weird. So Merrick has a lightsaber that he can like spin around like super duper fast, which... To me, I was like, man, that's a bit tough on the eyes if he was doing this.
Yeah, that's true.
But then, like, they do that thing. You know how, like, in a lot of, like, samurai thing, like, they'll do the thing where, both samurais, like, swing at each other, and then it takes a second before you realize which one, like, won and which one got hurt. Mm-hmm. They kind of do that thing here. But to me, I'm like, he's spinning his, like, blade so fast that... Like, are we to believe she, like, was able to, like, swing in between? Like, I don't even know how she did it, really.
I don't know.
It doesn't really show, but it happens. But anyway, he spins his lightsaber, but Ahsoka ends up cutting him across the chest. So this, I saw some people making a big deal about this on the internet. To me, like, I didn't need Merrick to be, like, this special person necessarily. But this seemed a little maybe anticlimactic. So I wrote, a cloud of seemingly alive green smoke exits Merrick's body with a scream. And so I guess we're supposed to... I mean, the way I interpret that is that, like, Morgan must have been using her witchcraft on his body or something like that.
Maybe, I don't know.
What did you think of that when that smoke came out? I mean...
I don't know enough about the Star Wars universe to know like what kind of creatures and beings exist. So right now I'm still trying to just like, maybe that's just one of the beings, like a smoke person.
I mean, I'm not super fond of like the magic stuff in the Star Wars universe, but they've set her up as like one of those witch characters. So that's kind of what I thought, is maybe she was like, using her witchcraft to take over this guy's body or something.
I couldn't remember who Baylan was talking to before, but there was somebody who was talking about Merrick's mission, and Baylan was like, he'll get it done, you can count on him. And if he was talking to Morgan, then it wouldn't make sense to me if she was the one who like was controlling him to doubt him maybe. But if he was talking to the girl that he's his apprentice, then maybe you're right. Maybe it is Morgan. I just don't remember who he's talking to, but yeah, that could make sense.
What I thought would be cool, because I don't know if they actually confirm that Merrick died. Like, we see that, because, like, let's say he was a person, like, bewitched by the green smoke. Mm-hmm. I think it could be cool if, like, she took over, like, a Jedi, and then, like, now it's possible that Merrick could still be alive, but maybe be like a good guy or something.
Yeah.
But I don't know if like in that scene we were meant to like think that he was completely dead or not.
Right. Yeah.
So now Sabine yells at Ahsoka to go after the map while she fights Shin. So this is what we referenced earlier, is like, they split up here, but like this was the right move.
Yeah.
Rather than stick together like Hu Yang said. Of course, maybe if they would have just... Maybe it would have been the right move, because maybe if Ahsoka and Sabine just ganged up on Shin, they would have easily beat her and then be like, oh, now we can go double up on
Yeah, I was
Baylan.
thinking that too.
So maybe it would have been a better idea to stick together. Who knows?
Jump that girl. Get her.
Right.
Beat her. 2-on-1.
So now we see that Morgan's droid has gotten like halfway done with figuring out the coordinates. Morgan tells Baylan that she's going to prepare for her departure and that he needs to protect the map until she sends for him. So now Ahsoka shows up to that, circle thing with the map. And Baylan and Ahsoka have a conversation. So Baylan says that Anakin spoke highly of her. Ahsoka says that Anakin never mentioned Baylan. Baylan says few members of the Jedi Order lived to see what Anakin became. He asks if that's why Ahsoka walked away and abandoned him. And then Ahsoka says she's not here to discuss her past. And Baylan says the only reason he's there is to secure the future. That made me wonder if perhaps his conversation there, if perhaps like back in the day, if Baylan and Anakin were close in some way. Like he had some sort of respect for Anakin or something.
Yeah. It sounds like it.
Yeah. So Ahsoka says she's not. Ahsoka asks if starting another war is necessary. Baylan says he won't start another war, but Thrawn will. But really, I mean if he knows that, he's an accomplice. If I had like another criticism of this episode, I would say that none of their dialogue between each other was all that interesting to me.
Yeah.
Like I was hoping to have, something juicier in there.
Mm-hmm.
Baylan says it's unfortunate, but one must destroy in order to create. But then, like, his character is hard to get a beat on because, like, he sometimes says things that make you think, oh, this guy maybe has, at least some dignity and class. But then there's other times where he says things that are very like kind of greedy. Like in the episode before, he was like, "This will get us, power we could have never dreamt of." But then other times he's like, seems like he has all this respect for the Jedi and stuff.
Yeah.
And so you don't really know, where he lies exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So now it cuts back to the fight with Shin and Sabine. Shin knocks down Sabine, and Sabine tries to use the Force on her, and it doesn't really work. And then Shin tells her that she has no power, and so then she uses her wrist weapon, like she can shoot projectiles out of her wrist, and she uses that to knock Shin's saber out of her hand. Baylan tells Ahsoka that her legacy is one of death and destruction, like Anakin's. And so they start to fight. Ahsoka knocks him down and grabs the map. But it's like, for some reason, the map being held in that center thing, it gets like really hot. And so she ends up having to drop it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why. I guess magic heats things up really hot. Shin throws a smoke bomb and escapes from Sabine. Morgan's droid tells her that he cannot complete his calculation since Ahsoka removed the map. So now Baylan and Ahsoka begin fighting again. Shin shows up and Baylan tells her to get the map. Ahsoka stops Shin by using the Force, like slams her against like one of those pillars or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Baylan backs Ahsoka up to the cliff overlooking the ocean when Sabine shows up and gets the map. Ahsoka tells Sabine to destroy the map, and she puts her gun to it and tells Baylan to step away from Ahsoka. But Baylan ends up just knocking Ahsoka off the cliff. So Sabine shoots at him, but he's able to easily deflect her shots. So now Baylan tells Sabine that he knows that she thinks Ezra is the only family she has left, and that he is in search of a greater good, and asks her to make the journey with him willingly. He promised that if she agrees, no harm will come to her. Which, she starts to like buy into this, but I'm like, that makes me question the intelligence of her character. Like, I mean, I guess she is desperate to see Ezra and like find out, but like, I don't know. Should she really be trusting this guy?
I mean, There are a couple things she could have been thinking there. Like, one, yeah, destroy the map. Don't let them get it. Stop this where it is. Two, she really wants to see Ezra that badly that she's willing to, risk everything to take a chance on that. But there's a third thing also, actually. And I think that she was biding time.
Hoping that Ahsoka would come back.
Yeah. So, I mean, that could have just been like her being like, okay, I'll go along with this until I can change the dynamic of what's going on right now.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that kind of makes sense. But yeah, he promises that if she agrees, no harm will come to her. So Sabine gives Baylan the map and then is immediately force choked by Shin, who shows up behind her. Baylan tells Shin to release her, and she begrudgingly lets her go. Baylan puts the map back, and Morgan's droid completes his calculations. So Morgan sends a shuttle to retrieve Baylan. Now we get a scene with Hu Yang. Hu Yang is able to fix unjam the communications or whatever, and contact Hera. And, he's basically like, you got to get here right now. And she's like, you're in luck. We just showed up conveniently right now. So yeah, her and the other guys jump into, right by Cetos. Hu Yang tells Hera about the hyperspace loop and that she must stop it. Morgan tells Baylan the calculations are complete, so he destroys the map. Baylan, Shin, and Sabine entered the Eye of Sion with Sabine in handcuffs. Morgan's droid tells her about Hera's fleet, but she says to ignore them and engage the hyperdrive. So the Eye ends up powering up all the way, and it jumps into hyperspace. And this actually causes 3 of Hera's fleet to die. The wake of this thing taking off causes 2 of them to knock into each other, and it causes another one to blow up too. Mm-hmm. Which makes me wonder, because in Star Wars, they're always jumping to hyperspace or whatever, and I'm like, has this ever happened before? But I guess this is basically a ring of hyperloops all connected together. So it's okay, maybe it's different because it's so many of them.
Yeah.
Of course, with people, because it seems a lot of times in Star Wars, they'll be hyperspacing away from an enemy or something. I was like, well, does it never affect the enemy ship when they just have one ship jump into hyperspace? It doesn't seem to, But I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. They got a bunch of them stuck together. So now Hu Yang finishes repairs on the ship, but can't reach either Sabine or Ahsoka. Okay, so now Ahsoka wakes up. I wrote on the interspace travel system seen in Rebels, and hears Anakin's voice. At least I assume that's what this is. So I don't know if you remember, I told you there's an episode of Rebels where Ezra is able to go to a Jedi temple, and he enters this thing she's on, where it basically allows you to walk to various portals that go to various places. And so I'm pretty sure that's what this is, and it's something that will allow probably Ahsoka to end up going wherever they just jumped to with the hyperspace loop. Mm-hmm. But I am curious because, like I said, Ezra, he had to find a Jedi temple to access that thing, and she's apparently just able to access it. Also, I forget, did it show her wake up on the beach or anything, or did it just automatically go?
No, she was just in that black space.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So I'm like, is this caused by a near-death experience? What caused her to actually be able to go to this place?
That's what it sounded like, because when Anakin walked up to her, he's like, I'm surprised to see you so soon. And it sounded to me, that made me think oh, maybe she died.
I also kind of wonder about people who are good at using the Force. If they fall off a cliff like that, can they not use the Force to break their fall a little bit?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if they can use it to totally fly and really slow their descent, but it seems like they could do something.
Right.
Maybe she did that. I don't know. I wrote, she then sees a vision of Uncanny Valley Anakin, and we hear a snippet of Darth Vader's theme. So I'm wondering, like, do you think this, like, vision of Anakin is going to try to maybe, like, lead her somewhere dangerous?
I have no idea. Like, I don't know much about Anakin Skywalker, to be honest.
I mean,
I know he becomes Darth Vader.
Right. So his whole story is, yeah, he became Darth Vader, but like in Return of the Jedi, which is the last movie of the original trilogy, like he kind of like right before his death takes like a redeeming good guy turn where he turns on the Emperor.
Okay.
And then like so presumably, you know, and then this is like a lot of people don't like this, but in the original versions of Star Wars, it wasn't like this. But when George Lucas did like the special editions, he made Anakin's Force Ghost appear like at the end of Return of the Jedi, like put it in there. And so I'm thinking that means that like, you know, if they want to, like Anakin's Force Ghost can talk to Ahsoka.
Oh, okay.
So maybe that's what this is. I'm just not sure.
Gotcha.
I mean, if that's the case, it would seem like this entity is basically good.
Okay.
But I guess that's a mystery going into episode 4.
Right.
So, or I guess no, episode 5. This is episode 4. So, I mean, with episode 5, do you think we'll actually get to see where they jump to in hyperspace? Because shows do this sometimes where they like set up something big, but then the next episode they'll be like, oh, we're going to purposely do an episode that has nothing to do with that just to get your anticipation up. So many shows do that, so I'm always leery of like when there's like a big cliffhanger. I'm like, oh, is the next episode the BS episode?
Well, hold on. Now, how many episodes are there in one season of this?
I believe there's 8 episodes, so I think we're halfway through.
Oh, I think we are due for a BS episode. Little filler episode.
Yeah, because originally my thought, and I still think this might be the case, is that they would save, you know, the Thrawn and Ezra reveal until either the last episode or the second to last episode.
Yeah.
You know, I'd be all for it if they want to do it now, but
I mean, yeah, I mean, well, what they're going to do, I imagine, is explore this whole Anakin thing, you know, like the deeper meanings of the Force and how it's all connected, maybe. Like,
yeah, I mean, you would think that'd be part of it, is like, you know, Ahsoka and Anakin walking through that weird thing. And
yeah,
like,
discovering or talking about their past and revealing to us like what happened.
Also, in that Rebels episode, it was weird because like Ezra, like he when he was in there, like he looked through a portal and saw like Ahsoka and Darth Vader like fighting, and like it looked like she was about to die or something. So he actually like pulled her out of it right there. So like she presumably already knew about this place.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why she's able to access it. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I will say though, I kind of wish that they didn't kind of have so much of a connection to Rebels, because I will say I'm glad that I watched that last season Rebels before I watched this, because otherwise I would have had no context for a lot of this stuff. But like, it seems like a lot to expect that people would have watched Rebels before they watched this show. That's a big time commitment.
Right, yeah.
And like,
and how many seasons are there of Rebels?
4.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, but I think, you know, Dave Filoni is a guy that he produces like a lot of these Star Wars shows and stuff, and he produced all the animated stuff. I think the animated stuff was kind of his baby, so I'm sure he likes to have it, you know, those characters and stuff in live action now and referenced. And I think he's rumored to be the one that's going to direct eventually that movie that crosses a bunch of these things over, you know.
I mean, it's kind of cool that the animated stuff is like canon, you know, like I feel like that's not always the case with like franchises. Like DC and stuff. You know, they don't really have the animated stuff be part of the main storyline. So
I will say, and I wonder about this with the Marvel stuff too, if overall it's beneficial to have like how all the TV shows and movies are connected, because it just seems like I think a lot of people get intimidated by that, because it's one thing to be like, okay, there's like so many Marvel movies, like, you know, somebody thinking about getting into them, like, what do I watch? But then to know on top of that, oh, once you get to this point, you're going to want to watch all these TV shows too, to really know the full context of everything that's going on.
Yeah.
It just kind of creates a giant that, like, for, although at this point, I'm sure most people know if they're in or out on like Marvel and stuff,
True.
but like, it does make for a really heavy continuity.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm liking this show, and excited to watch the next episode. AJ, any final thoughts on this episode, or things you're maybe looking forward to in the next one?
Yeah, I'm just looking forward to learning about the Force, man. Like, I'm such a novice at this whole thing. Like, I want to see what this whole relationship between her and Darth Vader, Anakin, was. You know, how they speak to each other. Like, I know she's his student and apprentice, but
I'll be honest. All the Star Wars stuff I watched, generally speaking, the Force, it moves things with your I mean,
it's like plot armor.
Yeah, kind of. Like, it kind of does what they needed to do, I think, at some points. Oh, I got this connection because of the Force. Or I had this revelation because of the Force. Oh, a Force ghost told me what to do here. You know?
Okay, yeah.
You know, so I don't know. Maybe the Force is better left somewhat mysterious, but like, you know, it's fine. But yeah, for the most part, I would say the Force is just used to like force push and force pull things, which is a cool power, but
yeah, but that's not like the ultimate power. Like, the guy with the laser gun is more powerful than you. Except they are able to like deflect all those lasers and stuff.
Yeah, because like Kylo Ren, you know, he was powerful enough. They shot a laser at him, and he just like paused it. So like, apparently, if you're good enough with the Force, like even lasers can't stop
you. Can time it too, like a laser. You can time it to where you stop it before it gets to you.
Got to be strong with the Force, man.
It's only 186,000 miles per second or whatever. I can stop that.
They have. Well, you know, it's a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. So they only had that slow laser technology at that time. Right. So
the primitive technology with the lights.
And apparently, you know, maybe it's not the stormtroopers' fault that they always miss when they're shooting at people. Maybe it's that old gun technology. You know, like, this thing doesn't aim worth a crap.
This man mass manufacturing these crappy guns.
Right.
We're blaming these poor stormtroopers. We're just trying.
All right. I think that'll do it for today's episode. We do thank you guys very, very much for following along. If you will, please subscribe to us on YouTube. You can also subscribe in audio form on your podcast catcher of choice. Leave us thumbs up, 5-star reviews, all that good stuff. If you want, you can follow me over on Twitter/X at Zach Jones Live. That's ZachJonesLive. And that is going to do it for all of our shenanigans and poppycock this week. Please, please, please tune in again next week. Bye, guys.
Take care.